I bet there was not a world that you could ever imagine that one day you would download a podcast and hear that, right? Hannah McKay, Dexter Morgan doing the deed deep in your eardrums. Here's an interesting thing, though. This is one of the few episodes that doesn't end with a Dexter voiceover. I mean, words don't suffice when it comes to what Dexter was feeling, what he was up to in that moment. It'd be weird to hear a voiceover in that moment. And when we get to the interview section of the podcast with the talented Yvonne Strahovski, she will help us break down that scene even more. She's going to tell us all about what it's like to enter Dexter's world, both as an actor and as Hannah. And more importantly, tell us all about that scene, which was full of a lot of first-time experiences for her. So you'll find out what that means. Hey, welcome back, or if it's your first time, welcome to the Dexter Wrap-Up Podcast. We're going to be talking about episode 706, Do the Wrong Thing, written by Lauren Gussis, directed by Alex Sakharov. I'm your host, Scott Reynolds. I'm a writer-producer on the show, here to help give you a more behind-the-scenes look at how an episode of Dexter is made. We knew from the beginning that this was going to be, as the writer of the episode, Lauren Gussis, calls it, the sex-episode. We have one of those every season, and if you're a fan of the show, you can pretty much pick them out. And here's the thing that you may or may not have noticed, that she was the one, she's the one who's going to write it, and for some cosmic reason, whenever there's some big sex stuff, some big sexy love scene with Dexter and another woman, who do you think ends up writing that episode? Lauren Gussis. And proudly so, by the way. When we were breaking it, we were thinking, believe it or not, about romantic comedies, or as Rob G likes to call them, rom-coms. Dexter and Hannah on the best, worst first date ever. And if you look at it closely, each of Dexter's crosses with Hannah are somewhat humorous and failed attempts at Dexter trying to get to know Hannah better. Of course, he calls it vetting, and his vetting leads him deeper and deeper into the lives and loves of Hannah, from her second murder while away in a halfway house after getting out of jail for being an accessory to the spree kills with Wayne Randall, to the murder of her first husband, to Beverly Gray, the woman who owns who used to own the flower mart that she, or the place where she grows flowers. Dadgummit. Dexter thinks that his fixation on Hannah is all about his dark passenger controlling him, telling him what to do. But by the end, as we saw, we quickly find out that this is not about his dark passenger. This is about a whole nother passenger that frankly takes over the driver's seat of Dexter's life. And this was a tricky scene when we were breaking the story. I mean, sure, it's nice and romantic, the way that Dexter takes her to Santa's playland, the way they're holding hands as they're walking up, the picnic basket in his hand. And then they step inside the room, and he flicks a switch, and snow starts to fall, which, by the way, is way above and beyond the pale for any kill room that Dexter has tried to set up for another killer. I mean, it's kind, and this is what you always wanted to experience. It's beautiful and, dare I say, romantic. But then, how do you drug a woman, strip her nude, wrap her in plastic to kill her, and still keep the fires of romance burning? In most other movies, that is the bad guy capturing the heroine of the movie to do terrible things to her. But no, this is Dexter. He doesn't do that. After Hannah looks at Dexter dead in the eyes and says, do what you got to do, Dexter surprisingly sets her free. And her response is, I don't know, it's just as crazy and compelling. She could have, if this were like Texas Chainsaw or something, she would run from that building screaming, running for her life. Or, I don't know, some other movie, she might have grabbed the knife and attacked him. After all, this is true to her M.O. It's to take out anyone that threatens her life. We learned that in depth while Dexter was vetting her. Anybody that did anything against her, they disappeared. But no, with Dexter, it turns to sex. The both of them deeply drawn to one another, and who knows where this could lead? Two serial killers, each killing for very different reasons. Dating? I'm in. Are you in? I'm in. You're yes. Meanwhile, Debra, now that she feels safe with Isaac behind bars, meets Sal Price, a true crime writer with a Jones for writing what really happened to Hannah McKay. And as it turns out, he's got a thing for Debra Morgan. So, you got to wonder, has she found possibly a new person to direct her romantic feelings towards? That'd be good. Don't we all hope that to be true? On a side note, can we talk about Batista and Jamie, his sister? Of course we could talk. I'm in charge here. I don't even know I asked that. I love that moment when Jamie spilled her guts about how Lewis was caught having sex with hookers when they're at that restaurant that Batista says, hey, I'm going to open a restaurant. I love that look, the look she's got, how grossed out she is at the thought that guys do that, pay for sex. What would she think of her own brother's predilection to pay for sex back in the day? I mean, Zaius portraying that uncomfortableness with talking about this with his sister was brilliant and funny and awkward, and, a round of applause for those two. Anyway, how about we talk about Quinn in this episode? That guy's in a pickle, as my dad would say. Isaac needing to get out of jail, not just because of the Colombians that were after him. He faced off against them pretty well. But more importantly, because he wants to get his hands around Dexter's throat and choke that sucker out. He tells George to get him out of jail and to use Quinn. And thus, Quinn is forced to protect his girl Nadia from being sent away to some horrible sex club. And, while I haven't been to such an establishment, we can all understand that this would be a terrible fate for Nadia, or any woman for that matter. So Quinn does the bidding of the Koshka Brotherhood and steals away the only piece of evidence linking Isaac to the multiple murders of the Colombian bar. This, of course, is the promise from George that Isaac will promptly leave town and never come back, and that he will get and Nadia will be free from their evil sex trafficking clutches. This is a violent corruption of Quinn's own code, but the guy does it for love. Little does he know that Isaac is all about killing Dexter, and we watch Quinn do the wrong thing. Finally, let's talk about LaGuardia and Debra and this continuing investigation into who the real Bay Harbor butcher was. Here's the secret. It's Dexter, for those of you who haven't caught on yet. LaGuardia has a new tact. How about this? Maybe the Bay Harbor butcher was the one who killed all the bad guy rapists, who killed the girls that were in the barrels, that were stuffed in the barrels from season 5. Remember that? If LaGuardia thinks if she can prove that the Bay Harbor butcher is still at work, even just last season, season 5 or 2 seasons ago, I don't actually, that's wrong. I don't think the characters think in terms of seasons. Anyway, if she can prove that the Bay Harbor butcher is still at work, not only can she clear James Doak's name, but she can openly pursue the real Bay Harbor butcher. It is in the middle of this that Debra realizes that not only was Dexter the one behind the deaths of the guys who killed the Barrel Girls, Jordan Chase and As I Spit on Your Grave cohorts, but that Lumen was the woman helping Dexter, or rather that Dexter was off killing those bad guys with Lumen in some sort of atonement for what happened to Rita at the hands of the Trinity Killer. And worse, that Dexter was actually dating Lumen, another thing done sort of out of some sort of version of love, which affects Debra in a strange way due to her revelation last season about Dexter last season. And this really sends Debra over the top, leading her to try to go out on a date of some sort with the crime writer Sal Price in an attempt to run from her feelings about Dexter. It's all twisted and weird. Love is awesome, and I don't know. Which, of course, leads her to understand that Dexter hid the truth about Hannah from her. Hannah is an unrepentant killer who was an active accomplice in at least one kill during Wayne and Hannah's kill spree. We saw that in 705. Not to mention all the stuff she'll learn from Sal about Hannah. All this while Dexter ends up having sex with Hannah. Man, oh man, is this ever going to get messy. So what do you say we take some time to ask Yvonne Strahovski all about this? She's got some good things to say about Hannah and why she does what she does. I think you're going to like this big time. Wait, let me make sure I get the name right. Strahovski.
Yes.
Right. Sometimes V's are silent. You never know.
I know. It's funny because I changed the spelling. I mean, but originally one of the Chuck producers came up to me and said, you need to change your last name because we cannot, it's spelled completely differently than what it is, than what you see. He said, we can't do press with your name like that. And he suggested Yvonne Striker with a Y. And I was like, no.
Action film star.
I went with the original, but I phonetically sort of spelled it out.
How's it originally spelled?
STRZECHOWSKI.
There's not a world in which I would have known how to pronounce that.
No.
So the Z is completely silent.
Well, it's pronounced Strahovski.
Oh,
that would be the Polish proper translation.
Right. It's still tough here.
Yeah.
We Americans were stupid. We like names like Duke.
Yeah. I get called Yvonne occasionally.
Whenever you go to Starbucks, Yvonne?
Yvonne. Yeah.
So how'd you get into this whole acting thing then?
Well, I remember having my first acting lesson when I was 12.
Okay.
And I was always going home after school with my friends, or with one friend in particular, actually, my best friend, who we're still friends, very good friends. We used to make up our own skits and write little faux documentaries and things and be very silly. And my mother used to always film us. So I have a lot of home videos of acting.
Your mom following you around with a video camera. That sounds terrifying.
Yeah. Well, I was a show off and I liked it. And just from school, I was always involved in all the drama things and Shakespeare, my first Shakespeare when I was 14. And then I went straight into drama school, a university degree after high school. And then that was it. I worked in Australia for 3 years professionally once I graduated. And then.
So you're from Australia?
From Australia.
I didn't think. I kept thinking she's not from Boston.
No,
because you would never know. Watching you on Hannah, on Dexter. You'd never know. Yeah,
that's the spin-off.
This week on Hannah, you'd never know. It's
right.
Pretty amazing.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
How did you make the jump to come over here then? Just not a lot of work over there, or some Australian movies, huh?
I ended up going with friends. A bunch of friends were coming here, and they sort of said, why don't you come with us? And I thought, yeah, why not? So I went and had to LA. I came here and had some meetings. I was only here for 2 weeks. This was at the end of 2006. Had some meetings, got a manager, went back to Australia. I was finishing up a guest star role on a television series there. So I missed out on the January portion of pilot season for 2007.
Okay.
So I ended up coming here in February, and that was it. And then 2 days into it, we got a call saying that the Chuck people had seen my tape and they wanted to meet me. And by the end of that week, I had the job. And it was nuts. And that was it. So it was just me and my suitcase for that first year and 8 different rental cars trying to figure out whether I was staying. But I did.
You did.
Here I am.
Good thing.
Almost 6 years on.
And they made you change your name.
Yeah, Striker.
We covered that at the beginning. Yvonne Striker.
Yeah, Yvonne Striker.
I have your double tall latte, cappuccino.
Sounds like a porn name.
It does, you're right. In a different world. And then you got in the movie thing, right? You did that, was it The Professionals? No, what was it called? It was...
Killer Elite.
Killer Elite.
Oh, that was recent, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and then what else? Some other...
So you've been hanging with a lot of covert sort of people.
Covert?
Yeah, because you have, with Chuck, sort of the agenty sort of double life, and then the Killer Elite, they're all assassins, and now suddenly here you are on Dexter with the king of all liars, Dexter Morgan.
That's right. I seem to have a
thing
knack.
going.
Yes, yeah.
For deceit. Acting, it's all good, right? Yeah.
Right. Paid to lie.
So so you got on Dexter. How did that all come together?
Well, Scott Buck called and said
he's the showrunner. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he said, "Do you want to play Hannah?"
Right. So how did he? Because there's no pages or anything at that point, really. There wasn't even
no, it was various phone conversations where he explained what was going to happen this season and how it was all going to end up, and that was pretty much it.
So had you seen the show before then, or you quickly caught up?
I'd seen bits and pieces, and then I quickly caught up in the space of 3 weeks and watched every episode back to back. So for the 6 seasons before this one.
That's fun.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. And then you just took it.
Yes.
Sight unseen, sort of. I mean, as far as what Hannah was, that's pretty great. But you know how it's going to end, so that's sort of exciting.
Well, yes. Well, more or less, I know. I'm just,
But don't say.
Yeah, no, I can't say.
Right.
We shouldn't even talk about.
Let's just stop talking about
how
that.
many. Well, yeah. I mean.
Was it? I always feel like, I've been on the show since season 1, and I always feel like whenever I see the new actor coming into the read through, it makes me think of high school all over again. Like lunch. Yes. Where do you sit?
I know. It's very...
Is it? Does it feel that way?
Well, yeah, read-throughs first start for me. It's not my thing. I don't really... for some reason, I get maybe because I haven't done many, and everything that I've been involved in, there's never really been a read through. We attempted one on Chuck, and then that was it.
Yeah, there's such a crazy schedule with network stuff.
Well, yeah. So, and coming into this, it's so you really are the new kid on the block. I remember going home and saying those words, talk about being the new kid on the block.
Because you got to figure out where you're going to sit. To sort of set a picture, there's like a big rectangular set of tables that are all lined up with like about 45 chairs all around them.
Yeah.
And all the writers sort of sit in the back area, and all the EPs sit in the front.
But nobody tells you this.
Yeah.
Because
they don't.
Well, you don't know who anyone is. I walk
right.
in, I don't know who anyone is, except for the actors. So I sort of
just sort of sit on one side and leak over into the writer.
Yeah, I picked the right side, though.
You did very well.
Intuitively. I just knew where to go.
And then you sit down and we start reading this thing. So is that, a lot of times, that the first shot at a script that you see, or?
No, I read them.
You do?
Beforehand. Oh, yeah.
And not just your pages?
No, I have to read it. Well, partially also because for me, as an Australian, I have to figure out if I've got any problem tongue twisters in there.
Oh, okay.
Because I will then read in my character's voice, which is an American accent. And so
Right.
I have to make sure that I'm, there's not some weird tongue twistery thing that I don't know how to pronounce.
Right. So did you start, when you found out that you were playing this sort of spree killer, did you look into that at all? Or did you, how was your sort of process to fold into this role of Hannah?
I watched some movies for inspiration,
like
just
Badlands,
to see,
or
I'd never seen Monster actually with Charlize,
right.
and I liked the heart that she put into that. You really felt for her at the end, especially. I mean,
I'm nodding profusely. You do, yeah.
Not that that's similar really to Hannah.
Because Hannah comes from a different sort of place.
Yeah, very different. I was just sort of trying to see what elements other actresses had found in their characters that also were killers in one way, shape, or form. So, and what was the other one I watched? I'm blanking on the name. The one with that crazy
Natural Born Killers.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, which was
again
completely
lots of heart,
different.
but crazy. Yeah.
Completely different. Yeah. So,
you oddly want them to get away with it, which is crazy considering the things that they do, the cold-blooded nature of the things that they do.
I know, yeah. It's just, it's sort of, you look at how much can you get away with being, it's hard because you want to be likable, but you're not really. I mean, you shouldn't be likable, but you hopefully end up being likable.
It happens. It definitely happens with Dexter.
Well, yeah.
You become very likable.
Absolutely. And he's mastered that. I mean, he is the master at being a likable serial killer. So, there's something in marrying those two things when you play what is usually a non-likable character in real life.
Yeah. So, you want to talk about Hannah a little bit? About how that all sort of, it's got to be weird. First of all, acting with Michael C. Hall, because you know what he's thinking at all times. If you read the script at all,
yes,
there's the voiceover moments, and it's got to be sort of weird to be thinking, to know exactly what he's thinking about you in a scene.
Yeah, I mean, he adds, obviously a whole bunch of other layers to that as well. So there's you have to be very sort of strong in what you're thinking and where you're coming from.
Right.
But working with Michael has been absolutely sensational. I mean, he's
something else.
He's something else.
Yeah.
He's just so respectful, and his process is amazing, and just so respectful of everyone else as well. And I've just thoroughly enjoyed working with him. On this. Yeah.
And it's a very fun. I feel like 5 is the two of you sort of getting to know each other a little bit. You're a little flirty. Hannah's a little flirty with him.
Yes.
What is a girl's got to protect herself.
Right. Yeah. At the car.
And you play it with some interest in Dexter. Yes. No. Yeah.
Yes, I do. I just I think there has to be an underlying attraction, a force that is. Whether it's made sense of or not in that moment by either of them, it has to be there to justify what happens.
Because you completely knock him off his game. Even before that, I'm trying to remember is it episode 4? No, it was episode 2, I think, where he had to go take the swab when Hannah was in the greenhouse. It's 3,
because
right.
I come in 3. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I mean,
and Hannah completely knocks Dexter off his game.
Right. I mean, I think she is good at doing that when she wants to.
Yeah.
If she feels like
some control issues with Hannah, perhaps.
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like she's had such an unfortunate life. All the circumstances. Look, it's going to be weird me talking about it because I feel sorry for her. I mean, the way everything that I've invested in her and what she went through. I mean, she's done terrible things, but
let's talk about that. So she meets Wayne Randall.
She meets Wayne Randall,
15 years old.
Right, and I mean, yes, she did what she did, but in my mind, she did that because she was in love and she didn't know any better in the moment, and it was just one of those things that you do, and then it just set up everything for the rest of her life. That it's like a domino effect, and then since that point, she's had to clean up. I think she's fighting so hard to have a regular life. She just wants to have her, nursery, have her plants, live a life. I think she's resigned to the fact that she probably won't find a life partner.
Right.
Until she meets
it always goes sort of
Dexter
bad.
And things sort of start to progress a little bit, and there's that whole underlying force between them.
Yeah.
So I think she's fighting so hard for that, and she continues to. It's sad. I think she so desperately. Well, like the more I talk, the more I'll give away. But that's where I should stop talking.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Most killers on this show, there is sort of an underlying, trinity. Rudy, the stuff that in the very first season that his brother did, even though it came out of a need for connection, there was an evil behind him. Yeah. And there's sort of, from my point of view, especially watching it, from one end of like sort of sitting in the writer's room, sort of helping to create the Hannah character, but then watching what you've done with it, there doesn't seem to be any sort of malice behind the things that Hannah does. No,
and I sort of, which is one of the reasons why I was sort of inspired by the monster movie, Charlize. Similar. It's sort of, she wasn't in, it doesn't come out of that malice. It comes out of a desperation of you've been set up in life and you have the cards dealt, and what are you going to do about it? And it's, I think, her intentions are to just try and make things right for her, and regardless of what happens to other people. I mean, she sort of just sort of eliminates people in her life. Right, because the first person that Dexter finds out about from the writer is the counselor. The counselor when she's in juvenile detention, and then do we know about Beverly? Yep, we know about Beverly Gray. Beverly Gray, who may or may not have been getting rid of the place. Who knows? Who knows why? But there's it doesn't seem again. It doesn't seem mean. It doesn't seem like you've buried anybody. And then we have like the craziest boy meets girl episode of all, I feel like, with 6, where Dexter sort of boy meets girl, boy tries to kill girl, girl gets the upper hand, boy fails miserably. There's no misery. I don't know at that end. Well, I wonder how people will react to that one. That's the first time. Yeah, it's the first. Yeah, it is very rare that anybody survive. I think there's only been like one other person that survived Dexter's table. Yeah, it was a blind voodoo guy. Oh, that's right. I mean, like, oh yes, and he couldn't do it. And he was blind, so you sort of feel like, right, we'll give him a pass. Yeah, this is. She's banking on the fact that the chemistry is going to outweigh anything else. Do you feel Hannah had any idea of what was behind Dexter? I think if she suspected it, I think she threw her hands in the air and went, "Oh well, if I come to face something, then that's it." Then, because on the table, then who cares? If this is it, then who cares? Yeah. I mean, in a way, that's a very general way of putting it. Obviously, more.
Because most times people are on the table. They're belligerent, or they're
Freaking
crying
out.
for their life, or they're
saying
like,
the
"Let's
F
go."
word.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
Which I don't get to say.
Not yet.
Not
no,
yet.
You do. You will, right?
Spoiler alert.
You're not foul-mouthed
No,
at all on this show.
I'm not.
You just like your flowers.
I like my flowers. I'm clean and innocent. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the table. What is that like? It's got to be. It's a weird. It seems you're wrapped in plastic and.
The table is really, it's confronting. I don't know, it's funny, I don't actually know on the day what was more confronting to me was the fact that I was going to be on a table, and it's naked. I mean, that's confronting too.
Yeah.
And about to be killed, or if it was what was going to happen after.
Yeah.
Because that is also, confronting, and a lot of firsts for me on this. I've never had to have sex on camera
did you
or
do that
be
in Chuck?
naked. No.
Oh,
No,
that's right. No, that's right.
There's never. It was a whole day of firsts for me. So
Well, you handled it like a champ.
it was really, a whole lot of. I guess a whole lot of confronting things going on that day. It was actually a little bit emotional as an actress for me to go in. It felt very vulnerable, which was interesting because I then had to fight that because of what was scripted and what the character is actually feeling. If she's feeling vulnerable, she's not showing it.
Right.
She can't show it.
Right.
So, very
What is it you say on the table?
Do what you gotta
do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just looking at him and not with venom, not with fighting, not with anything. It was all like a sort of a surrender. Is that what you would?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, she's sort of if she's going to surrender, then she's going to do it confidently and
on your terms, on
my
Hannah's
terms.
I guess that sort of is the key to Hannah to a certain extent. That it's
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in this moment, it's on her terms, and she knows she's trying to play that last card of chemistry. The chemistry between them, and is he really going to do this? And I don't know if she ever believes. I don't know if she ever believed that he was going to do it when she realized what was going on.
Yeah. What a way to wake up.
I think that adds to her confidence. You can't have such force with someone, an underlying chemistry, and then for him to do something like that would be completely the opposite of what they're feeling together, which is then why what happens.
Yeah.
So I think she's riding on that. She's got a strong sense of his attraction to her.
Because Dexter cuts you loose, and then steps back. Lots of things could have happened.
Right.
Could have fled.
Right.
Which a lot of people might have done, by the way.
Right.
Not Hannah, but
yeah,
could have grabbed the knife and stabbed him.
But that's why it's so important that they have. There's got to be some connection that is.
There's a mutual surrender of some sorts.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's very rare that anybody's had that sort of power over Dexter.
Yeah.
So good job.
It's very exciting.
What's going to happen in 7?
Ooh.
I don't know. Hey, Wilson, thanks so much for coming in. This was great.
Thank you.
I think people are loving who Hannah is. It's going to be amazing.
We shall see. I hope so. I certainly hope so.
Yeah, don't worry. It's good. We got a lock on it. I've heard from some people. It's all good.
I'll just save some poison for myself
no!
if the reviews are bad. No.
Reviews are going to be great. All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for coming in.
All right, thanks.
All right, here we are again. Scott Buck.
Hello.
Scott Reynolds, that's me. And we have because this episode, Swim Deep, was written by me, we have a guest questioner. The guy is bringing us all the questions. The guy that's always been here the whole time, Rob Galuzzo, Rob G.
Hello.
Hey, man. Thanks
for
doing
Scott.
this.
Thanks for having me.
You've been bringing the questions this week.
Okay, so Ken on Facebook asks, what does Deb know about Doak's demise? Surely she can't think Dexter has anything to do with it. It's a good question.
What do you think, Scott?
It's one of those things that in the room we talked about this a little bit, that she doesn't necessarily want to approach that. to think about what might have happened to Dokes.
She's still slowly absorbing everything that Dexter must have done in the past because it's so huge and so big. And yes, if she were to stop and examine it, she might come to the logical conclusion that Dexter must have killed Dokes.
Which of course he didn't.
Which he did not.
Dexter's got a good answer for that, but that's a lot to unfold in your brother's life.
Yes.
All of this stuff.
So I think she's simply not asking herself some of these questions until she thinks she's prepared to deal with the answers.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you guys have slowly unfolded that aspect of the show, like her bringing up Rita, I think, in 3 or 4, and so on and so forth. Okay, so Sandy on Facebook asks, and this is a good question, actually. When Dexter has his conversations with Harry, are they all completely in his head, or does Dexter verbalize any of his conversations or react with body movement?
Yeah, he's not like a ghost, and it's not like Dexter's schizophrenic, right?
He's not actually seeing Harry. This is just our dramatic way of illustrating that. He's just having a conversation with Harry in his head. But I think because Dexter is someone who can't really talk to other people about all of these things, that these conversations become very real to him.
Yeah, but he's not. His arms aren't gesticulating.
Right.
He's not looking to the right to see an invisible Harry. Yeah. It's just
so if there's a passerby, he's not talking to an imaginary person. Obviously.
He's not insane.
Okay, so Ash on Facebook asks, as an editor just starting out, I'm curious to know from a writer's perspective how much a writer works with an editor in post-production to make sure that both their visions and how the scenes are portrayed to the viewing audience are met.
That's a Scott Buck question, because you work pretty heavy with them, you and Sarah, right?
Our editors are very experienced, and they will first do their own cut, and then they'll work with the directors on that cut. But they also know what we're looking for. They're very familiar with the style of the show, the cutting patterns, how we introduce scenes, how we go out on scenes. So by the time we see it, it's fairly well put together. And then Sarah Colleton, she'll often sit with the editors, and I'll often sit with the editors going through things, on a very detailed basis. But
and you'll send us that director's cut. You'll send whoever's writer it is, and we'll give notes. But you guys carry it.
Each person whoever wrote the episode will serve as producer on that episode, and so also will be involved in the editing as well.
But next week we got Louis Ciaffi, the guy that's edited everything.
He's been with our show the longest. He's a terrific editor.
Yeah, so you're going to hear he really unpacks what being an editor is like on this show. Yeah.
Okay. The D Passenger RPF on Twitter asks, that's a good name.
Hope the D's for dark.
I hope so. Asks, was the jail conversation between Dexter and Isaac recorded?
Yeah, a lot of people on Twitter were asking that at the very end of episode 5 when he's sitting across from Isaac. In the room, we sort of talked that through. Dexter was able to go in there under sort of a different name, which was fine, so that his name's not necessarily recorded there, so no one's going to be wondering who's
there would be hundreds of conversations recorded daily, and they're
well, actually, we called in. I called in on the corrections officers, the Department of Corrections there in Miami, and they said they don't record the conversations. The only time they record conversations is if a homicide detective or somebody in the police force specifically requests all conversations to be recorded with these people. And because Dexter works in homicide, he knew that no one was recording these things. So yeah, that's how that works. That's how we're able to do that.
All right, you do your research, Scott Reynolds.
We do. I talked to a lot of good people.
Okay, so Karen on Facebook asks, is Dexter going to take care of Isaac inside prison so that he will not be a problem down the road?
I think that's you'll just have to watch and see kind of question.
Okay, this is fun. Flyboy from Facebook asks, how much does an actor's performance influence the way you write their character? For example, Scott Reynolds, did anything Scott Buck, did anything that Ray Stevenson did in the first few episodes influence how you wrote him by episode 5?
I feel like, even from the very beginning, the way the actors portrayed things changed how we started writing them,
Yes, that's very true to a point, but because we were also very familiar with Ray Stevenson from the very beginning, we knew who he was. We know, we talked to him about his accent and exactly how he would speak and stuff like that, so that, before he even began, we knew how to sort of write for him because we were very familiar with this actor, and he sort of, tailored his performance to this particular role. And yes, we did change it slightly as we moved along to better fit the character and his performance.
Yeah, I think that happens every season.
Yeah.
You know, with whoever we got. Edward James Olmos, things changed a little bit, and yeah.
Okay. Demetra from Facebook asks, since actors often bring their own ideas to the table on set, can you give us an example where maybe an actor surprised you, the writer, by doing something that wasn't on the page?
Yeah, actually on that scene in the parking garage in episode 5 between Dexter and Deb, there was this moment. There's moments coming up that I can't talk about. So anyway, in that moment when Deb slammed Dexter in the chest, just before she was like, I can't believe, just before she says about the truth, that was completely surprising, and it completely fit, and it felt very much like a brother and sister moment, but that wasn't scripted. None of that sort of frustration in that she physicalized was written.
Also, Michael Hall does it constantly. I mean, we write his lines and we write his action, but we don't typically tell him how to act. We never tell him how to act. So he's constantly surprising us with very interesting interpretations of the lines.
Well, it's like in the prison scene was another moment where he's actively listening to Isaac tell the story of revenge, of how he waited all these years. And whenever the camera would be on Michael, it's almost like his blinks were answers, if not threats.
Right.
It was amazing just watching each blink meant something. He's remarkable. We did not write that. Dexter blinks.
Dexter blinks.
Okay, Bushra, it's Bushra. Sure. Bushra on Twitter asks, why did you make Dexter lie to Deb at the end about Hannah McKay? He promised! !
So always tell not to take away things from the police. Yeah. Oh, I thought that's a question.
That is indeed a question. I think lying comes so natural to Dexter that it's almost his go-to.
Yes.
I think he has to think twice and remind himself to occasionally tell the truth. But in this situation, I think he felt like he could justify it in his own head that he wasn't lying because it wasn't a police case at the time. And he didn't think that he was keeping any necessarily valuable information from her. Because he knew that she had immunity at this point. Right.
Yeah, and I think Dexter, no matter what, he's always going to have his secrets, like you say. It's hard. It's a hard habit to break.
It's a safe place.
Yeah.
Okay, Dakota on Twitter asks, why didn't you have Dexter and Deb share a bed in the motel? Scott Reynolds and Scott Buck.
They make enough money that they could get a two-bed hotel.
I generally don't think brother and sister would share a bed in that situation.
It's awkward.
Okay, and finally, Holly on Twitter asks, did you write all those F-bombs for Jennifer on paper, or were they mostly ad-libbed? The scene in the elevator.
That actually happened. That was actually on set where Jennifer felt like she needed to express how she felt in some way after dealing with all these frustrating moments with her brother and with LaGuardia and all that. And so she pitched that scene. Mm-hmm. And so I ran up to Scott Buck and I said, "This is something she really would like. I know it's going to add a little bit extra to that day. You think we can do it?" And Scott Buck, he thought about it and said, "Yeah, that makes sense, right?"
Sure.
So I wrote a series of expletives, including, what was it?
I don't think we can say that.
I've actually seen that quoted in reviews already.
Yeah.
People have never heard that term before.
That stuff was all scripted, and then
I think she took it and made it her own.
That's right, and then she started playing with it and making it very focused on Dexter, so that it was very sort of clear that this is what she's frustrated about, not LaGuardia. So, yeah, it was. I think that's a world record for most swears in the shortest amount of time on television. Congratulations.
You've made your mark, Scott Reynolds.
My pastor mom's gonna be so pleased. Well, anyway, hey, thanks, Ramji, for doing that, man.
Thanks for having me.
You got a voice for podcasting radio.
Oh, hush you.
You Mr.
You're the host.
Icons of horror. Well, there it is. The big end. The end of the 5th Dexter Wrap-Up podcast. Or is it this is the 5th? Yeah, it's the 5th.
Sixth.
It's the 6th.
Episode,
That's right,
man.
It's the end of the 6th Dexter Wrap-Up podcast. Now, if you have some questions after watching episode 706, Do the Wrong Thing, you can get them answered by Scott Buck and the writer of that episode, the incredibly talented Lauren Gussis. She's funny, she's profane, she's smart, She's good at doing the wrong thing. She's going to knock your socks off. So how do you get your questions answered about Do the Wrong Thing? Well, you can go to facebook.com/Dexter, and you can post up your questions there. Or if you're into tweeting or twittering, then you can hit us up at twitter.com/SHO_Dexter. But make sure if you're on Twitter that you hashtag that question with hashtag Dexter Wrap Up. But you better do it before Monday night, because we get all these questions together on Monday night, pick the best of the bunch, and ask away on the podcast. I want to thank Yvonne Strahovski for venturing up into my office to do the podcast. It's a scary place to go where all the writers are. They're sort of unclean, strange people with
I'm not going to say anything.
It's very brave, and it's also very brave of her to share how that episode had so many first-time experiences for her. It was nice for her to bring us all into the know, getting us deeper into the mind of Hannah McKay. And how about that accent, right? And I bet you can't wait to see what happens next, but you're going to have to. Our lips are sealed as to what happens next. That was us being silent about what happens next. It's words to action. I want to thank our sound guy, Rob Galuzzo, a.k.a. Rob G., the producer sound guy for the podcast, for not only producing this mofo, but for stepping in on the mic to ask our questions. He rocked that mic. And I'm Scott Reynolds, one of the writers here on the show. You can find me on Twitter at JScottAmy, JSCOTTAMY. You can follow me, become one of us. One of us. One of us. I'll try to post something fun this week, something very behind the scenes or something, some picture or something. That'd be fun, right? You can catch us next week when we also post pictures of our guests on there every week. So you can catch us next week when our guest will be Louis Jaffe, who's not only the guy who's edited more episodes of Dexter than anyone on the planet, but he's won awards for it too, big ones. He's going to break down how he edited several key scenes in the episode. It's an eye-opening experience. Well, that's it. That's the end. But don't worry, it's going to happen again and again. Has to happen. Have a good week.